Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight back to the 12th century to dive into the Kakatiya Dynasty. We're talking about a wildly powerful Telugu empire that ruled over the eastern Deccan region in present-day India from 1163 to 1323. But listen, we aren't just going to rattle off a list of kings and political maneuvers today. We're exploring a tangible, physical legacy that literally reshaped the landscape. So how exactly did a 12th century dynasty use stone and water to unite a completely divided land? I mean, it sounds almost like something out of a fantasy novel, right? But these ancient builders actually managed to stitch together completely distinct geographical and cultural regions through pure, unadulterated engineering and architectural genius. They didn't just conquer, they built. And what they built fostered a shared identity where absolutely none had existed before. Here is our agenda for today. 1. Origins of the Kakatiyas. 2. Unifying the Deccan Plateau. 3. Architectural marvels of stone. 4. Engineering the uplands. And 5. The dynasty's enduring legacy. Section 1. Origins of the Kakatiyas. Okay, so for over 200 years, the early Kakatiya rulers were actually just feudatories. They were essentially middle managers serving under the Rashtrakutas and Western Chalukyas. But in 1163, a leader named Rudradeva decided enough was enough, suppressed other local subordinates in the Telangana region, and assumed true sovereignty. From there, the expansion was just massive. Under Ganapati Deva, who ruled from 1199 to 1262, the territory grew rapidly, absorbing the Telugu-speaking lowland delta areas. He was then succeeded by Queen Rudramadevi from 1262 to 1289, and she led a period of intense and incredibly successful defense of those newly expanded borders. You might be wondering, though, where does the name Kakatiya actually come from? Well, historical clues from local inscriptions basically point us in two directions. Kakati might refer to a specific geographical location, like an ancestral town where their early chiefs lived. Or, and we see this in later 15th century commentaries, it could refer to their tutelary goddess, Kakati, who was worshipped as a form of Durga, or maybe even originally a Jain goddess like Padmavati. Either way, her descendants proudly became known as the Lords of Kakati. Section 2. Unifying the Deccan Plateau. Now, the Kakatiya's greatest political and social achievement was bridging two completely different worlds. Think about it like a giant puzzle. On one side, you had the dry uplands of northern Telangana on the Deccan Plateau, really sparsely populated, mostly the haunt of everyday peasants, artisans, and warriors. But on the other side, you had the coastal river deltas of the Godavari and Krishna rivers. These lowlands were booming, highly populous, packed with established, wealthy temples, and a very high proportion of Brahmins. Two totally different economies, totally different cultures. Bringing these distinct societies under one unified umbrella was an absolute masterstroke. How did they pull that off without it all falling apart? By being incredibly egalitarian. They introduced the title of Nayaka, which was a warrior status that literally anyone could acquire, regardless of their birth. They basically said, we don't care about your caste. They recruited everyday upland peasants straight into the military, forging a brand new warrior class. If you had the skills and did the work, you got the job. It offered immense social mobility, which was a huge deal for the time. And this merit-based society was tough as nails. It actually grabbed international attention. The famous Venetian explorer Marco Polo visited the region right around the end of the 13th century, and he was completely blown away by Queen Rudramadevi. As one of the very few queen regnants in Indian history, she proved her military genius by fending off attacks from the Yadavas of Devagiri, keeping her hard-won, unified territory perfectly intact. Section 3. Architectural marvels of stone. The Kakatiya era birthed a completely distinct style of architecture that heavily innovated on what came before it. We're talking absolute architectural marvels here. To hit the main bullet points, you've got the 1,000-pillar temple in Hanamkonda, which Rudradeva built to literally cement his new sovereign status. Then there's the breathtaking Ramappa temple, massive defensive structures like the Warangal and Golconda forts, and the intricate temple complex of Kodagulu. Guys, these weren't just buildings to them. They were enduring physical declarations of power and art. To really wrap our heads around their engineering brilliance, we just have to look at the defenses of their capital city, Warangal. Organized by Ganapati Deva, this wasn't just your standard wall. It featured a massive granite perimeter. And here's the brilliant part. It utilized interior ramps. This meant soldiers could easily and quickly access the ramparts from the inside during a siege. Add in deep moats and numerous defensive bastions, and you are looking at an absolute marvel of 13th century military engineering. So, what happens when you build all these roads, forts, and temples? You create a massive bi-directional flow of culture. Ideas and innovations would spark in the dry uplands, travel down to the lowlands to be refined, and then get recycled right back into the Deccan Plateau. It was a constant, thriving exchange that birthed a brand new feeling of cultural affinity among Telugu-speaking people. Before the Kakatiyas, that unified identity just wasn't there.
Section 4. Engineering the Uplands.
5,000. I really want that number to sink in for a second. That is the staggering number of reservoirs, commonly called tanks, built by warrior families who were subordinate to the Kakatiyas. Guys, 5,000. This wasn't some minor civic project. This was a massive, landscape-altering initiative that entirely changed the game for agriculture and development in regions that used to be incredibly dry and sparsely populated. The ultimate crown jewel of this water infrastructure is Pakal Lake. Now, this wasn't some natural formation they just stumbled upon. It was a massive, man-made lake engineered by Ganapati Deva. And the reason was simple: the economy. More water meant more agriculture, and more agriculture meant a boom in trade. Ganapati even went so far as to abolish taxes on merchants, keeping only a flat fixed duty, just to encourage foreign trade. Pakal Lake was essentially a gigantic investment in the region's economic engine. So how on earth did they mobilize people to build all of this? They engineered this brilliant three-step socio-economic loop. Step 1, donate a piece of land to build a small temple. Step 2, tie the endowment of that exact temple directly to the construction and maintenance of a nearby water reservoir. Step 3, use this hub to establish local political networks. It meant that participating in local worship also meant participating in a political hierarchy that organized the local water supply and agrarian society. Honestly, it was a genius way to structure a growing community.
Section 5. The dynasty's enduring legacy.
Things took a major turn by 1323. The Kakatiya Dynasty formally fell to the expanding Delhi Sultanate, throwing the region into political disarray. But here's the thing. The structural foundations the Kakatiyas had built were simply too strong to vanish. Just a few years later, in 1330, the Masunari Nayaks, who were actually former army chiefs for the Kakatiyas, united various clans and temporarily recovered Warangal. And as we move into the 15th century, the cultural and structural bedrock left behind by the Kakatiyas evolved directly into the foundations of massive subsequent states, like the Bahmani Sultanate and the Vijayanagara Empire. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, pretty mind-blown thought. How do modern infrastructure systems in the Deccan still mirror the Kakatiyas' 13th century irrigation tanks? The wild truth is that many of those thousands of tanks, including massive ones at Pakala and Ramappa built over 800 years ago, are still actively used today. A dynasty from the 1100s literally carved the bedrock of modern life in the region out of stone and water. That is the true, lasting power of engineering. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.